Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, Yankee fans could breathe a little sigh of relief. Finally got some answers on Gerrit Cole's elbow, and it turns out, at least for now, he's not going to need Tommy John surgery. But as you expect, he's not going to be there to start the season. And in fact, they're saying anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks he's going to be out. So maybe best case scenario, sometime in June, he's finally able to pitch for the Yankees in the regular season. And it's kind of a kick the can down the road situation, but we will get into that injury. We also have the Judge injury to get you, a lot of injuries. Already covered Peraza to death, so really nothing new there. But some other developments kind of related. Dylan Cease, who possibly the Yankees might have been re-engaging in as a solution to not having Cole around. Well, he's off the table, shipped out to San Diego because of that deal. And of course, some other fallout regarding who the Yankees are going to tap for the opening day starter. And an update on Domingo Germán, no longer a Yankee, has been signed by another club, whether you knew it or not. So get into a lot of good stuff. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. There's always some drama. It's always the Yankees. It's always fun here. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, wherever you get your favorite podcast, and go over to the YouTube channel, Section 420 Talkin Yankees there as well. Just posted a recent episode. This was kind of like the beginning of hearing that Cole is going to need a second opinion. I was about to fly out to LA to see that other doctor there. So that was kind of like the beginnings of the concern. But there's some other cool stuff in there as well. Kind of get into the whole Anthony Rendon and some of the comments he made a couple of weeks ago. I never really got into as well. There's some other cool stuff. So yeah, even though the Cole stuff might be old news there, but there's a lot of other stuff in the episode you want to catch as well. And you also want to be a podcast subscriber in general. Other cool stuff. I recently appeared on the Bronx Muchachos podcast. They've been on my show originally a couple of years ago, and then they've invited me pretty much past couple of seasons onto their show, usually at the start of the season. So I did an episode there as well. Not posted yet, but will be soon, so you want to keep an eye out there. So a lot of good stuff going around there, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And so let's jump in both feet here with Gerrit Cole. Yankee fans are really not just a combination of Cole and Judge, your two best players. Just the fact that just the word IL, injury, or concerns is labeled with them is something you don't ever want to have. But of course, Gerrit Cole's serious situation. He's your ace. He's the Yankees everything. Again, if he's down, this team ain't winning a World Series. I'm telling you right now. Maybe somehow they could squeak away into a playoff spot, but you need Gerrit Cole. So the fact that possibly he might have torn that UCL and/or needed Tommy John surgery. Again, Yankee fans are holding their breath. So he had the in-house opinion. Went out there to the West Coast, and I believe there's a doctor out there. Is kind of the one who worked on a lot of big stars such as Ohtani. He saw this doctor, and I guess, the consensus after a bunch of reports, and, Boone was kind of saying this, that they were going to look at a couple different reports before giving an assessment. The assessment is that he has no torn UCL, so good thing there. So he's not going to need the Tommy John, but there could be some ligament damage there, so forth. So they feel that it's going to be best that he'll just have rehab and what they call non-surgical procedures, to just rehab him back to health, and they figured that would be good enough. Again, as I mentioned at the top, be out 10 to 12 weeks. So again, you're not going to be there to start the season. And I guess this, all things being considered, you would just say, look, that's probably the best case scenario. I mean, you don't want anything, regarding him going under the knife. Now, is this stuff, this non-evasive methods, is this going to have Cole back to being the 100% of Cole we know he could be? I don't know. Is he going to lose a tick a mile off the fastball? Possibly, or a little sharpness off the breaking ball. So maybe. But even if you get Cole back, again, as long as he doesn't further injure himself, even if he's like 90% of himself or 92% of himself or 85% of himself, that's still going to be better than most other solutions, backup solutions you have. So you just kind of go with it. And again, I don't think it's like it would really derail the Yankee season. I mean, he's only out there once every 5 games if you think about it. So again, the Yankees can mix and match other players in there just to hold down the fort. So it's not something where like the Yankees are going to be completely hamstrung by this. I mean, just like the fact that you have someone you can rely, every 5th day to go out there and almost get you a win or at least give you a good quality start. So you lose a little of that, but overall, it's still not like detrimental why this team can't be successful in 2024. And if he does join the team, get out of midway or a little before the midway point, okay, it's great. And if you want to go back, Yankee fans might remember 96. Technically David Cone was the ace. Then he had the aneurysm thing. Almost his life could have been in jeopardy, but he has this successful surgery. But he wasn't there to start the season. Took him a while, and then joined the team about halfway in. Had this 7 no-hit innings out there in Oakland. Situation where maybe he could have gone. Obviously, the first start, you're not going to push him to 9 innings there, and that was always a debate. But again, he came join the team and had a great rest of the 96. And of course, we all know in the playoffs, he was good enough, winning that big Game 3 in Atlanta, turning around the series there, and the Yankees would go on to win the first of the 4 championships under the Torrey dynasty. So again, even if your ace is not there for a big chunk of the season, as long as the other cogs are doing what they have to do, you could still compete and kind of hang around a little bit and then just wait for Cole to join the team. So I don't think it hamstrings the team. You just hope this rehab thing is fine and he doesn't further injure himself when he does end up coming back. Now, this could also be a situation where the Yankees are kicking the can down the road. Maybe he could come back, maybe he aggravates himself, and then you decide, yeah, we're going to need Tommy John surgery. So now you wasted a couple of months. But I'd rather play it this way right now. If you don't need the surgery, if nothing's torn, then I would say just hold your breath for a couple of months and hope, he's at least 90% of himself when he does finally join the team in June. That's probably the best case scenario, because whether he goes under the knife now, obviously this season's done and a chunk of next season is done for him. Or if he at least goes on the knife, later in the season, all right, maybe you're losing more of 2025 of Cole, but I'd rather just risk that a little bit just to see if you could get him back in some sort of fighting shape and not re-aggravate it. I'd rather just roll the dice, do the rehab, and not get the surgery too soon there. So again, if you're a Yankee fan, it's not good news he's out for 2 months or more, but it's probably, if you're looking at what you could have been facing, I guess you kind of just take a sigh of relief there and just kind of move on. We have our other Yankee injury, of course, Aaron Judge. This one, I didn't seem as serious. Again, you heard stuff about his midsection, having a core issue. Remember that with Luke Voigt a few years ago. Only thing you worry about Judge is the oblique, because he has had the oblique injury a couple of times with the Yankees, so you're worried about that cropping up. You hear more about a midsection issue, abs, did the MRI on his abs. Again, it seems less of a serious situation because Boone said, he'll be swinging a bat this weekend. So if the fact that's the case and he's going to be in the lineup, I never thought this was a serious injury. It was this Judge was kind of complaining what Cole was complaining, that it was just hard for him to bounce back after games, kind of feeling, sort of the way he would feel during the middle of the season. And he said if this was the regular season, he wouldn't have been out at all. So it kind of makes you wonder what the pain some of these players are going through during the season, that they're not sitting out there playing. Maybe they're not performing well, and fans are getting on them. But maybe it's a situation where they should be on the IL, but they're not. And so it kind of shows you the other side of them fighting to stay in the lineup versus some of these guys. They kind of like have a hangnail and they're out for 3 months with on the IL there. So kind of just show you Judge's toughness. But this never seemed like as serious an injury. And once they mentioned ab versus oblique, I was a little bit more relieved there. So I think Judge is fine. It could be a number of things I speculated on the YouTube channel. He did miss a chunk of last season, so it's kind of like, all right, you shut your body down for 50 games, then you get it revved up for the last kind of month or so of the season, and then now you shut your body down again for winter. And I know it's Judge and these guys are professionals and they got batting cages in their houses and all that stuff, but now you jump back into live action. Maybe they're off and on, maybe tweak something a little bit. So nothing structural there, and again, nothing dealing with the oblique, so that should be okay. But related to that, though, the Yankees have announced the players that will be traveling to Mexico City. This is the exhibition, 2 games against the Diablo Rojos a little later this month. And we were kind of wondering which Yankee stars would go or not. Again, it's an exhibition. It's not really important, but also, you want to promote the game and so forth. And, so you'd want some of your best players to play. But of course, now with this Judge injury, even though he should be fine by that time, he will not be making a trip, and I think that's the right call. I know it's a flight. These guys fly all over the place, all over the country, all over the world, but I just think the extra travel and playing perhaps 1 or 2, a little bit more competitive than your usual spring training game, not worth the risk. I just think better stay Judge, keep him Judge home to either just, rehab himself a little bit, maybe just do some batting practice, even maybe not even play games in Florida, just whatever, just chill out for a few days. I'm okay with that. But there will be some, Yankee big names going there, so, not to rip off the fans there. In Mexico City, includes Juan Soto, very likely to go, according to his comments. Another new Yankee, Verdugo, Jose Trevino, Giancarlo Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, Victor Gonzalez, the new lefty from the guy from the Los Angeles Dodgers. So at least some of the big name Yankees will be making the trip, and that's all good. And of course, we previewed this already. Likely going to face at least the old former Yankee Robinson Cano. Obviously Cano was gone from Seattle before those guys came to the Yankees. So, but of course, you always see Cano as a kind of a Yankee. A little parentheses, Mariner, Met, but he's obviously you always see him as a Yankee. So likely he'll be in those games there, just kind of compete against his old team there. So getting back to the starting rotation, of course, you would expect Cole to make that first start if he was healthy in Houston. Not going to be the case, so they're looking at who's going to make the opening day start. Now, it seemed like Stroman tried to push him to do it, but in order to do so, he would have to take some extra rest days and it would mess with the rest of his spring training schedule, and he'd want to do that. So he actually declined that, which I don't know if players are allowed to do that, but I guess so. It's a thing. I mean, it's kind of like, all right, you're the player, you get orders, you do what you're ordered to do. But I guess whatever he has, I guess the clout or whatever gravitas or just the way the pitches are so important that the pitches kind of dictate what they want to do, and I guess he just doesn't want to do whatever extra work days or extra rest days in between starts to line himself up for the opening day. So he actually denied it. So I guess by de facto, and I guess the way it lines up better, it will be Nestor Cortes making the opening day start for the Yankees in Houston, which should be kind of interesting because he kind of left last season early. Remember one game he got really roughed up bad by the Astros, and of course the Astros beat him up in Game 4 of the 2022 ALCS there. So, Nestor's track record against Houston, not particularly great. I remember a couple years ago, he had like one decent start, went like 5 innings or so in Houston. Actually, he went a little longer than that. That's like actually a game where the Yankee bullpen blew it for him. But again, lately, Houston has beat him up a little bit. So I don't know if that's the best matchup for Nestor, who's making the first start of the season coming off an injury plague 2023. But nevertheless, it will be Nestor going out there. Well, just kind of have to deal with that. Now, a couple episodes that, more on the YouTube channel have discussed Dylan Cease as during the offseason, the Yankees, when they were kind of pursuing some different starters, obviously, Rumorville with Dylan Cease, maybe Blake Snell. And I was never really high on Dylan Cease, putting some good numbers up on a terrible Chicago White Sox team. But I never thought someone they should really go all in for. And the problem with his price tag, not only arbitration eligible for this upcoming season, but the season after. So he's under control for 2 seasons. So you can see why teams, would be planning to get him. So that kind of puts the Chicago White Sox in a position of power where they could demand more, because really he's a 2-year rental versus a 1-year rental. There was a couple of different stories, broken by Bob Nightingale of USA Today, saying that the Yankees did pursue Cease during the offseason. But it looks like, the asking price might have included both, Drew Thorpe and Spencer Jones, the Yankees' left-handed prospect there. And it looks like the Yankees were not willing to give away both. So it just seems like once the deal for Soto was made, when the Yankees give up Drew Thorpe and then a boatload of other prospects, that probably emptied their tank to go after someone like a Dylan Cease. But you've heard that once the Cole news was floating around out there, that the Yankees actually re-engaged with Dylan Cease, but the asking price was definitely going to be Spencer Jones, since again they already dealt Drew Thorpe to get Soto there, and of course the Yankees were not willing to get rid of Spencer Jones. So it seems like Chicago definitely wanted Jones, but also probably wanted Drew Thorpe at some point. So now instead of that, looks like Dylan Cease was instead traded to San Diego. Now, funny enough, San Diego, who had the Yankees, Drew Thorpe, he becomes part of the package going to the White Sox. So it seems like the White Sox really wanted Drew Thorpe to get him one way or the other. So I guess through the Soto deal, and then now afterwards do this Dylan Cease deal, the Chicago White Sox get their man at Drew Thorpe. So I guess they wanted him. No, I guess they got him now. And now Dylan Cease goes out to San Diego. But again, he's a good player, he's a good pitcher, but he's not someone I think the Yankees should really break the bank for. He could be maybe a little bit better than a Frankie Montas who's not injured. I mean, look at the Frankie Montas. We traded for him, brought him in, he was terrible, and he had a hurt shoulder. So I don't think that's the case with Dylan Cease, but I don't think he was a can't miss or like a guy you have to go after. And this is obviously different trade versus free agent, but when Mike Mussina became a free agent after the 2000 season and he was still in his prime, like that's a guy you have to get. When CC Sabathia is a free agent after 2008 and he's like the best pitcher in baseball, and you try to put a rotation together for 2009, you have to get him. And it's similar when Garrett Cole became available, you have to get him. There's certain players like you have to get if they become available. Dylan Cease, I don't put him in that class. I don't put him in as I kind of mentioned on the Bronx Muchachos podcast when I joined them. Cliff Lee is a guy in 2010. When he was out there, the Yankees should have done everything to get him, because I would have guaranteed them they would have repeated as champs in 2010. I don't put Dylan Cease in like that Cliff Lee, gotta get him, you could win the championship if you get him category, whether they did or did not have Cole available to start the first game of the season there. So again, I wasn't big on Dylan Cease, and ultimately he goes away, and I'm that's a deal. I'm okay, Cashman, not really putting the accelerator on that one. But I think once they dealt Drew Thorpe to San Diego as well as the other prospects, the Yankees kind of emptied their tank to really put a package together that the White Sox would like. So that probably, even though they said, well, maybe the Yankees re-engage after this Cole news came down that he might be possibly done for the season, I never really thought that was really serious. But now he goes over to San Diego and whatever, bon voyage, and whatever, he's out in the National League West. It's not like you have to face the guy probably maybe once a year with the interleague, and that's about it. So not really harm for the Yankees. And other pitching news somewhat related to the Yankees, Domingo Germán, who the Yankees designated for assignment, took a minor league deal for $1.5 million for the Pittsburgh Pirates there. So I guess he'll join Aroldis Chapman, which is kind of interesting there. You heard, former Met and former Yankee pitcher Doc Gooden kind of suggest, after Germán with the issues he had last season, he should maybe just take a year off from baseball. But I guess whatever treatment he got, maybe he feels ready to go. And so he gets a deal for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and this hopefully he can straighten his life and his career around. Again, when he's on the mound, he's pretty decent starting pitcher, though sometimes I think being a Yankee puts the pressure. You see some players buckle under the pressure. And it just collapse where they go elsewhere like a Sonny Gray or something to become a phenomenal pitcher. But I think there's also some cases where being in the Yankee pinstripes and just being in that atmosphere kind of props you up. And I feel that's to be the case with Germán, like where if he would not be here and he would go with somewhere else, I could see him go off the wayside, kind of just do his own thing, figure like, no one cares, fans don't care, media don't care, and I kind of just do whatever the heck I want. And I can see him really, again, if he doesn't really get his head straight, I can see almost having the same or worse problems there in Pittsburgh. But hopefully that's not the case, and good. Hopefully he could probably put his career back together and get carry it out somewhere else, but obviously not going to do it here in a Yankee uniform. So that's the episode. Covered a lot here in, somewhat of a small time, but all things being equal, you would take the news on Cole, don't have to go in surgery, and maybe you're kicking the can down the road for surgery elsewhere. But, if you remember Masahiro Tanaka, phenomenal for the big chunk of his first year in 2014, but then he had the UCL issue, never really snapped and never really needed the surgery. I thought he would need the surgery at some point, but was able to finish out his Yankee career pretty darn good and respectable. Maybe he never lived up to what he first was when he first got here, and it was just pretty much untouchable. Maybe that's going to be a case with Cole afterwards. Remains to be seen, but again, you'll take this news. Judge should be back okay. And you got Nestor Cortez tabbed there for the opening day starter, and Domingo Germán turns a leaf. We'll be doing it there in Pittsburgh, in PNC Park, which was voted the nicest baseball park in baseball recently, and I got to attest to that. I've been there a couple times myself. Went there in 2008 to see Jabba Chamberlain when the Yankees tried to finally convert him to a starter, make his first start. The Yankees actually won the game. It's a really nice ballpark, so if you're a New York fan, even if maybe the Yankees are playing there, it is a 5-hour drive, not great, but it's worth the trip. It's a great place. The prices are dirt cheap, and it's a nice little town there. So check out PNC Park. We'll catch you next time.